Hello and welcome to another video review. This is Drakensang the Dark Eye, also known as Drakensang das Schwarze Auge for PC. Now, I really didn't know what to expect going into this, mostly because I'm really not that familiar with the role-playing system it's based on. The Dark Eye is basically the German equivalent to Dungeons & Dragons, only it's more complex and definitely a lot more restrictive. Now, I'll get to that more when I get to the gameplay, but suffice to say, I was actually very surprised by how complex this game can be, and really how different it is, but yet still the same as the old school party-based role-playing games that I so like to play. And so, to be honest with you, I was actually very pleasantly surprised with that. Now, what I wasn't very surprised with were the graphics. Now, European games aren't exactly known for having the best graphics, unless, of course, you're Crytek. But, Drakensang's graphics are not particularly great. They're not bad either. They're just kind of there. They do their job. They're average. Characters look okay. The textures look okay. One thing I don't really like about it is the art style they used, at least for the environments. Everything's just too bright, it seems. It could do with being slightly darker. I mean, it doesn't need to go all grim and just brown and gray and everything. But just a little bit darker color scheme would have worked wonders for this thing. Because as it stands, it's a little bit too fairy tale-esque, especially considering the game's actual story and stuff. Because it just doesn't fit the mood very well. But that said, everything looks okay until you get to the animations, which are pretty awful, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, they're decently fluid, but they just look really dumb. Like, if you have a sword, for instance, the way you wield it, you look like some moron fighting in an old, very cheap action-adventure flick, where it's just kind of like you're obviously fencing as opposed to actually sword fighting or something. So everything looks kind of forced and cheesy, but it does kind of lend to the aspect of this game being a little bit fantastical and fairy tale-esque. Now, the sound design is kind of all over the place, at least in each individual regard. Let's start with the music, though. The music is actually really well done. It's nice orchestral kind of stuff that gives off the fantasy vibe really well as the kind of fairy tale-esque vibe. And it just kind of mixes the two very well. And so you end up having this very nice soundtrack that really draws you in. And it's coupled with some merely average sound effects that do their job and not much else. I mean, barrels breaking sound like barrels breaking. Things dying sound like things dying. Where it kind of gets a little bit in trouble is the voice acting. Now, for the most part, when they're just talking, it's actually pretty decent to pretty good. There's nothing that I can really say that's bad about the voice acting in terms of their actual script. It's the actual, grunts and yells that you hear for most of the game. For instance, the male warrior sound, well, not just the male attacking sound in general, it kind of sounds like, "Hey-er!" It's really weird to listen to it. I can't really describe it very well. You just kind of have to hear it, and then you're just like, wow, that sounds dumb. And it's the same way with the females, too. They all have the same generic attack sounds, and it just sounds really dumb. And it gets on your nerves after a while, just because it's just kind of like, oh, man, do something other than make that really weird yelling noise. But overall, the sound design does work pretty well. It's just kind of a mixed bag. But what really matter here are the story and the gameplay. Now, the story begins with you receiving a letter from your friend Ardo, and he asks you to come visit him in Furdok. So when you get there, you find out that they've closed off the city, and you need to find two notables to give you, just to basically vouch for you so you can enter the city. And it goes from there. I don't want to spoil too much of the story, but eventually you'll get to the main part of it, which is to embark on the Dragon Quest and become the Dragon Champion, which basically just means, generic hero of the lands kind of thing. This is where the game really fails miserably. It is one of the most horribly cliched games I have ever seen in role-playing history. In any of my time playing role-playing games, this is easily one of, if not the most cliched. Because pretty much everything in it has been just drawn from old cliches. And that just really wore on me after a while, because I was like, really, game? You're really going for this and that? And, oh, man. Characters are cliched, story elements are cliched. And even worse than that, there is a lot of padding in this game. There are a lot of segments where it just drags on and on and on. And so you'll be left sitting there like, really, game? This is really getting tedious. And to make matters worse, if you have no idea what the Dark Eye is, or Das Schwarze Auge in its original German, you're going to have trouble with this game. I didn't know what it was going into it. I mean, I knew it was a German role-playing system, but I didn't know anything about it other than that. The reason being, pretty much nobody plays the Dark Eye in the U.S. It just doesn't happen. It's a German role-playing system. We have D&D. Germany has the Dark Eye. It's that simple. So outside of Europe, really not that many people have really gotten into the Dark Eye, and I had no exposure to it before Drakensang, to be honest with you. So I had no idea what I was doing going into this. I knew it played sort of similar to Baldur's Gate in the terms of the controls, which is to say, it is a party-based role-playing game. You do move them around with the mouse, you move the camera around, all sorts of different things. And so it plays fairly similarly to Baldur's Gate, and that was easy to pick up. But at the same time, adjusting to the Dark Eye role-playing system was extremely difficult for me. For one, the leveling up system is really awkward compared to something like D&D, which is really straightforward and very easy to figure out. Basically, you get experience points by doing different things, like killing monsters or completing quests and stuff like that, which is, typical role-playing stuff. But when you level up, it literally just adds a number to your level. That's kind of it. What really matter are the adventure points that you get, which are equivalent to your experience points, but instead of just continuing to go up, you will actually use up your adventure points when you buy skills and stats and such like that. Say, for instance, you want to upgrade your sword skill, and it will actually display a little cost when you go to... you have to find the button for it, which is kind of annoying. It's on the top left of the character screen for some reason. But when you decide to upgrade your stats and such, you go to upgrade, say, your sword skill, and it will say, it will have a parentheses with a number in it, like, say, 390. And when you upgrade your stat, you will actually lose 390 adventure points. So you really do have to pay attention to what you're doing in this regard. It is pretty much impossible to make a class that will really do kind of everything well. You really have to pick one thing and stick to it. Because if you don't, then good luck. Because this game is extremely stat heavy. It is extremely difficult to be flexible with it. Which is why it's so important to have your party members with you, because they are different classes, they can do different things. So that becomes very handy later on, especially later on, but early on as well. Also, there are some segments of this game that are really difficult and others that really aren't at all. And combat generally devolves into just clicking on things and just waiting, because it will just spend quite a long time doing die rolls to hit and miss and all that. And a lot of the times you'll miss, so it just seems like it drags on and on. Really not a lot of tactical depth to the combat at all. So, in that regard, it's kind of weak compared to something like, say, Baldur's Gate or Icewind Dale. The combat is really kind of weak. But the role-playing system itself is quite interesting. It's quite varied. There's a lot of stuff in it. And you'll come across a lot of random junk all the time, which is kind of random. Like you don't expect that in a role-playing game. I mean, you can get a bunch of random junk in, say, the Elder Scrolls series, just by going around picking up random things and saying, hey, I'm just going to carry this stuff around. But in Drakensang, the random junk is your loot. And so it's kind of annoying to be finding all this stuff, actually. And for some of it, you can craft things out of them. which is kind of cool, actually. It is really nice to be able to craft things in Drakensang, and it actually is a fairly robust system that works pretty well. But it's still kind of awkward and just kind of annoying when you're carrying all this just junk, like rusty nails and stuff like that around. It's like, why do I have all this? And it's like, and even better, it's like, why can't I get really good stuff, like better weapons and armor and stuff like that? And that's something that other role-playing games do a lot better than this. It is kind of stingy on the loot, the really good loot. And it really does drag quite a bit, especially when you're leveling, because leveling takes forever in this game for some reason. You really don't get that much experience from killing enemies or even from quests, so it seems like it's just going to take a really long time to level up. Now, luckily, your level really doesn't matter. It's your AP that matter, but still, it's quite annoying, to be honest with you. So, overall, though, I'd say that despite having a lot of problems, Drakensang really is kind of a charming game. It's really nice to have something fairly lighthearted and have this party-based role-playing game that actually works. In this era where basically everything seems to be a one character run around and whack things in the face kind of game, like, say, Two Worlds or Oblivion, and so on and so forth. So it is nice to have that old school kind of style of party-based role-playing game back again. But that said, Drakensang isn't really the best example of this. You really could do a lot better. You could play Baldur's Gate or Icewind Dale or something like that. But that said, it is nice to check out, especially if you're looking to get into the Dark Eye, because it does it a lot better than Realms of Arcania. Trust me. If you try to play Realms of Arcania and you've never played anything at the Dark Eye before, you will find it horrible. Still, Drakensang's story and its heavy reliance on cliches really doesn't detract from it so much that the gameplay doesn't make up for it. But still, it's not a great game. I give it a 3 out of 5. Thanks for watching.